What's up YouTube? In this video, I am going to be discussing why it is that I chose the Ford Transit over the Mercedes Sprinter or a Ram Promaster for my camper van conversion.
My name's Eric Johnson and welcome to my channel. I'll be documenting and sharing everything about this DIY van conversion. If you'd like to follow along, by all means, hit that subscribe button.
So just kind of jumping into it, the first category is going to be the purchase price. Now, when it comes to purchase price, this is kind of a hard topic because the way that these cargo vans, they come from the factory as like a base price or a base level with basically no options, like no power windows, no power door locks. And then you can add something like, I can't remember exactly how many the Transit had, but I think it was in the hundreds as far as the available options. So pretty much everything that you see that looks even remotely nice on these vans is an added option from the base price. It's almost impossible to find an apples to apples comparison of one cargo van versus another if you're gonna go find it like on a dealer lot.
So assuming you spec all the vans, at least from the core standpoint, as close as possible, the Transit's about $48,000 with all-wheel drive. The ProMaster is starting price is $43,000, though that is again two-wheel drive, and then the Sprinter with its four-wheel drive, depending on the payload that you choose, you're either looking at $58,000 or I believe it's $63,000.
So the next category was the drivetrain options available. So of course there's like four-wheel drive or two-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Now, my understanding of all-wheel drive is that it tries its best to make sure that it's delivering power to the wheel that has traction, but it's not as manually controllable as like a dedicated four-wheel drive, so it's not going to be as good. But it is absolutely better than just a two-wheel drive option. Now, you can aftermarket upgrade the Ford Transit to a four-wheel drive system where they'll just take components from like a, you know, the 350, the F350 trucks, and they'll just swap it out for the Ford Transit. So if you do start with a two-wheel drive, you can at least upgrade it to a four-wheel drive down the road, which was not something that I saw as being an option on the ProMasters. Could be wrong there, but I don't think that was an option. So the next category was either a diesel or biodiesel engine versus a gasoline engine. Now, the Mercedes Sprinters were predominantly all diesel. ProMaster and the Ford Transit were both gasoline engines. You could get a gasoline option Sprinter, but it's only like the 4-cylinder, something like that. So not really common and not something that I think you could even get with a four-wheel drive. So there's some sort of combinations that are not compatible with Mercedes, but I, after a bit of research, walked away from biodiesel, feeling like that was not really the best option for me. There were a couple of issues that I found with biodiesel compared to gasoline. You know, first and foremost, biodiesel does not do well in cold temperatures. So right off the bat, you have a decreased fuel efficiency. So you're gonna get worse miles per gallon when you're in cold climates with a biodiesel compared to gasoline. Also, biodiesel fuel can freeze. If you're in like -5 degrees Fahrenheit or -20 degrees Celsius or lower, biodiesel, I think it's called, they refer to it as like gelling or gelling up. Now you can add like a stabilizer to, or I'm not sure if it's called a stabilizer, but basically you can add like a fuel additive to biodiesel so that it doesn't do that, have that freezing issue, or you can go into lower temperatures. But it's just like one more thing where if for whatever reason you weren't anticipating like a massive weather drop and you hadn't added that preservative to your fuel tank, you could definitely find yourself stranded in the middle of nowhere with your engine not starting just because it got cold and you didn't expect it to. And that seemed like another major liability that I didn't want to deal with. So that runs into the next category, the cost of maintenance. So the Mercedes Sprinter engines are, like I said, really particular. So much so that not even every Mercedes dealership has a certified technician for their sprinters. There's only specific dealerships that do have a tech who's certified to work on their sprinters. And if Mercedes themselves doesn't even have this kind of like across the board, it gets to where trying to find like a certified tech to work on your Mercedes Sprinter is something of a hurdle. And I've seen a number of other people kind of discussing this issue of, you know, where they can get service, you know, what cities have like a certified technician, and basically just the scenario of if you're out in the middle of the boonies and you're not near or in a major city, and if something does go wrong, you're either gonna have to get your Sprinter towed to the next, you know, the nearest certified tech, which could be whatever, hundreds of miles to the next, you know, major city, or you're gonna have someone who doesn't know what the heck they're doing with those Mercedes engines, which are different. Like they're a lot more complex than the Ford or the ProMaster engines. So the Ford Transit engine is super similar to like their the F-Series trucks and like E-Series vans. They're like a dime a dozen. Basically, every single mechanic out in existence can work on a Ford Transit. You can find parts pretty much on the shelf everywhere, and the cost of those parts are pretty minimal. You're not necessarily having to import them from Europe somewhere, and not only is like the labor less expensive, the parts are less expensive, but just ease of access is going to be a lot greater. For all of those reasons, and just looking up like the average cost of ownership, you know, the Ford Transit's one of the lowest out there. And that was a kind of a major issue or a major concern for me. Guys, we are almost done. If you are still here, still watching, let me know. Give this video a thumbs up, but let's continue. We're almost done. Two more categories. The next one was aesthetics. Now, from an aesthetic standpoint, you know, my personal opinion, the Mercedes Sprinters look gorgeous inside and out. I think they kind of take the cake. The next option, I thought that the ProMasters were kind of like, I don't know, just smushed face kind of a vibe from the outside, super boxy. I don't think that they're by any means ugly, but they just weren't as, I guess you'd say, like sexy as the Sprinter. And then the Ford Transit is kind of like a middle ground. Like it's not the, you know, it's not as good looking as the Sprinter, but it's, I don't want to say ugly, but it's not as ugly as the ProMaster. And so it was kind of, at least from the exterior, happy medium. As far as the interiors, again, Mercedes, I think they set the bar. I mean, it is a Mercedes, but you do definitely pay for that. Ford, I feel like, was very close as far as like the kind of the vibe of the cockpit, just the layout, the big navigation screen. All of these things I thought were kind of in Ford's favor over ProMaster. So the last category were kind of just bonus items, but cool, at least to me, pretty cool bonus items. The Ford Transit has as an available option, and Betty here has the option for a mobile hotspot through AT&T. So it's built into the van. It gives you data connectivity on AT&T's network, which is different from my cell phone. I have Verizon for my cell phone. So between the two, I guess you'd say devices, I usually can get connectivity, you know, even if my Verizon doesn't have service, then usually AT&T does. Because of that connectivity, with the Ford, you can actually remote access your vehicle. I can start the engine from my phone. I can lock the doors, unlock the doors. It'll show me where it is on the map. All of these were pretty sweet features that I didn't even have in my normal vehicle before I bought Betty here. The one caveat I will say though is that having that that mobile hotspot built in does seem to kill the primary battery on this vehicle stupid fast. Pretty much like you've got to be driving this thing every couple of days, I think, or you're going to have an issue with your battery dying, especially if you only have the one main battery. So I'll probably be upgrading to 2 batteries in the future just because of that issue, which I'm 90-ish% sure is due to battery drain from the mobile hotspot turning on for like a half hour at a time whenever it turns itself on. So anyways, If you enjoyed this video, if you stuck around until the end, let me know what was something that you learned in this video, either about the Ford Transit, the Mercedes Sprinter, or the Ram Promaster. If you'd like to see anything else similar to this, let me know in the comments. I'm here to try and help answer questions for you guys. If you guys haven't already seen it, you might enjoy this other video of mine where I discussed how I financed my Ford Transit campervan conversion. Not only the purchase of the vehicle itself, but also the upfit or the conversion itself. So anyways,